Long before the Avengers assembled, before Spider-Man swung across New York, before the X-Men became a symbol of evolution, there was a family. A strange, brilliant, flawed, and fearless family who changed the Marvel Universe forever. They were the Fantastic Four, and their story began not with destiny, but with recklessness. The year was 1961. In the real world, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were shaping the future of comics, breaking away from simple tales of capes and masks to create something deeper. They imagined a team that was not perfect, a team that argued, laughed, cried, and loved like a real family. Heroes who were not gods or soldiers, but explorers, adventurers, scientists. And so, on the page, the story unfolded. Dr. Reed Richards, a man whose mind seemed to stretch further than the stars. A genius cursed with the arrogance of knowing he was the smartest in any room. His dream was bold, to reach beyond Earth, to pierce the veil of space, to test the limits of human potential. Beside him stood Sue Storm, his fiancée. Compassionate, intelligent, and steady, Sue was far more than the love interest. She was the heart of the team, though at first underestimated. In her, readers would eventually see the strongest emotional core Marvel had ever written. Then came Johnny Storm, Sue's younger brother. Hot-headed, rebellious, with the recklessness of youth burning in his veins. He craved adventure and attention in equal measure. He was the spark, literally and figuratively. And finally, Ben Grimm, Reed's best friend, a pilot with the kind of loyalty only forged in shared struggle. Rough around the edges, sarcastic to the bone, but brave in ways no calculation could measure. Together, they launched into space. A mission driven by Reed's obsession. A mission undertaken too soon, too fast, without enough caution. For in his arrogance, Reed underestimated the storm. The cosmic rays. It was no ordinary radiation. It was power, raw and infinite, born from the fabric of creation itself. And when their ship passed through, everything changed. They crashed back to Earth, broken, dazed, and different. Ben Grimm staggered out first, his body twisting, swelling, hardening into orange rock. His skin became jagged stone, his voice a roar. The gentle pilot was gone. In his place stood the Thing. A monster to some, but a man still within. His heart raged with anger at Reed, whom he blamed for his cursed fate. Johnny burst into flames, literally. His body ignited in an inferno that did not consume him. He soared into the sky as the Human Torch, the hot-headed youth reborn in fire. Sue, quiet Sue, found herself fading, her body flickering into nothingness. She was invisible, unseen, untouchable. And though at first she seemed fragile, her powers would grow into force fields strong enough to shield planets. She became the Invisible Girl. And Reed's body stretched, warped, elongated into impossible shapes. He could twist and bend in ways the human form was never meant to. He was Mr. Fantastic. For friends. For powers. For curses. But instead of breaking, they bonded. Out of tragedy, they found purpose. Reed, racked with guilt, dedicated himself to making their lives meaningful. Sue, balancing her compassion with her strength, became the glue that held them together. Johnny, impulsive as ever, embraced his flames with the reckless joy of youth. And Ben, though he hated his monstrous form, discovered a deeper heroism than any human face could hide. They called themselves the Fantastic Four. Unlike other heroes of their time, they were not masked vigilantes lurking in the shadows. They were public. They lived in New York's Baxter Building. Their identities were known to the world. They didn't hide who they were, they embraced it. They were explorers, adventurers, scientists who faced the unknown head-on. And with their arrival, Marvel changed forever. Because the Fantastic Four did not simply fight crime. They faced cosmic storms, alien races, interdimensional tyrants, and godlike beings. They weren't just superheroes, they were pioneers of the Marvel cosmos. Their very first challenge? A monster unlike anything seen before, the Mole Man and his army from beneath the earth. But this was just the beginning. The Fantastic Four would go on to face Doctor Doom, Reed's Dark Mirror and greatest rival. They would clash with the Skrulls, shape-shifting invaders who would one day menace the entire galaxy. They would open the doorway to the negative zone, unleashing threats no human had ever seen. And most famously, they would be the first to face Galactus, the devourer of worlds, and meet his shining herald, the Silver Surfer. But all of this began with that one reckless flight, that one cosmic storm, that one accident that created not just a team, but Marvel's first family. Because the Fantastic Four were not just heroes. They were scientists, explorers, family. Their battles were not only against villains, but against the unknown. And the unknown was limitless. This was the birth of the Fantastic Four. Not perfection, not destiny, but a cosmic accident that forever reshaped the Marvel Universe. From the very start, the Fantastic Four were never just superheroes. They were a family. And like any family, their greatest battles weren't always with villains or cosmic gods. Sometimes, their struggles were with each other. Reed's obsession with science often pulled him away from Sue, creating distance in their relationship. His brilliance was both gift and curse. He could invent machines that bent time and space, but he often forgot to look at the people right in front of him. His guilt over Ben's transformation into the Thing haunted him, driving him deeper into work, while Ben's resentment simmered like an earthquake waiting to explode. Sue Storm, for years called the Invisible Girl, carried the heaviest weight. She was often underestimated by enemies and sometimes even by her own team. Yet, as time went on, she grew into the true emotional core of the Fantastic Four. Her invisible force fields evolved from mere shields into weapons of staggering power. She could suffocate enemies in airtight bubbles, crush them with invisible walls, or protect entire cities from destruction. She became, quietly and undeniably, one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe. Johnny Storm, the hot-headed Human Torch, lived a life torn between fame and responsibility. He craved the spotlight, racing cars, dating models, flaunting his powers, but when danger struck, he always stood with his family. His immaturity made him reckless, but beneath the flames burned loyalty. Over the years, Johnny became a man forged by fire, still playful, still arrogant at times, but ultimately willing to sacrifice everything for those he loved. And Ben Grimm, the Thing. If Reed was the mind, and Sue was the heart, Ben was the soul. Forever trapped in a body of stone, Ben wrestled with bitterness and despair. He couldn't live a normal life. He couldn't walk the streets without stairs. Yet, time and again, he proved to be the most human of them all. His catchphrase, "It's clobberin' time," became a symbol, not of violence, but of resilience. A battle cry for a man who had every reason to give up, but never did. This dynamic was messy. They argued. They fought. Sometimes Ben even quit the team. Sometimes Johnny stormed out in anger. Sometimes Reed's obsession nearly destroyed them. But in the end, they always came back together. Because what made them fantastic wasn't their powers, it was their bond. And yet, their trials were far greater than personal conflict. The Fantastic Four were Marvel's gateway to the cosmic. They faced Doctor Doom, not just a villain, but Reed's greatest rival. Doom wasn't simply evil. He was brilliant, regal, and driven by a twisted sense of destiny. To Doom, Reed was not just an enemy, but a mirror. Every battle between them was a clash of intellect, ego, and ideology. Doom wanted control. Reed wanted exploration. Both believed they were right. They faced the Skrulls, shape-shifting aliens who tested the very concept of trust. They faced Annihilus, the insectoid overlord of the negative zone, a dimension of endless destruction. They faced Namor the Submariner, a monarch torn between enemy and ally, whose complicated love for Sue Storm nearly tore the team apart. And then came their greatest trial, the arrival of Galactus, the devourer of worlds, a being beyond morality, beyond good and evil. The Fantastic Four were the first heroes in Marvel to face such a threat. A god who could not be punched into defeat. A being who required something more than strength, something human. It was in this moment that the Silver Surfer betrayed his master, inspired not by gods, but by the compassion of Sue Storm. This arc cemented the Fantastic Four as not just adventurers, but as the team that stood at the threshold between humanity and the infinite. Their legacy continued to expand. They weren't just heroes, they were parents. Reed and Sue eventually married, raising children like Franklin Richards, one of the most powerful beings in existence, capable of reshaping reality itself. Their role as parents changed the landscape of superhero comics. They weren't just fighting battles, they were raising a family while doing it. But tragedy was never far away. The Fantastic Four suffered losses, betrayals, and even deaths. Johnny Storm once sacrificed himself in the negative zone, holding off a swarm of nihilist forces so his family could escape. For a time, the Fantastic Four became the Fantastic Three. Yet, even in loss, their bond endured. Johnny would return, scarred but stronger. Ben Grimm, too, lived with the burden of being trapped in his stone body. There were times he walked away, searching for a cure or simply unable to bear it. But he always came back, because no matter what he lost, the Fantastic Four were his family. Reed faced impossible choices, often sacrificing his morality for the sake of survival. Sue challenged him when no one else could, reminding him that genius without compassion was meaningless. And through it all, Marvel's first family became something greater than superheroes. They became the beating heart of the Marvel Universe. Every cosmic saga, whether it was Galactus, the Kree-Skrull War, or Secret Wars, was shaped by their presence. Without the Fantastic Four, the Marvel Universe would not have expanded beyond Earth. They opened the door to galaxies, to dimensions, to gods. Their triumphs were vast. They saved Earth more times than can be counted. They stopped wars before they consumed the galaxy. They stood against Doom, Galactus, Annihilus, Kong, and countless others. But their tragedies were equally vast. Worlds destroyed, allies lost, families tested. This was their legacy, not perfection, but perseverance. Because the Fantastic Four were not about being flawless. They were about being human in the face of the inhuman. And that is why, for decades, readers followed not just their battles, but their dinners, their arguments, their love stories. Because beneath the cosmic armor, they were a family. And family, no matter how broken, endures. The Fantastic Four were more than a team. They were a story about us.